Joining us in studio to talk a bit about NASA's program for the day and, of course, some of the implications of what we've seen over the last couple of days is Eddie Gisheru-Okech, who's a political economy analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for finding time to be here with us. First things first, the Machakos meeting slated for later today, and of course we'll be going to Stephen Leto to get an update on that. Is that a sign that any conflict, any bad blood that there may have been between constituent parties has now been sorted? Is that what we can read out of this?
I think so, but I also don't think that the NASA bigger objectives were much tied to the internal wrangles as are in any political party or any organization. The issues around slots in parliament, complexities around how those slots are shared within the party that form NASA are all mutually exclusive from the main agenda. I think that when the postponement was done...
So you don't think they would have slowed down the main agenda, that if those internal wrangles, as you're calling them, had not happened, that don't you think NASA's program would have happened a lot earlier? What is happening today would have happened last week, for example, or the previous week?
My read is that was a strategic decision. It was more a strategy than a crisis. So I think that the NASA programs are going on as intended, and I think that the leadership of the movement we are seeing right now, the People's Assembly, and the call for swearing in of Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, is more a tone that is set and guided by the principles of NASA other than the leadership of the political parties and the organizing committee. If you remember, this is a team that went into politics seeking to get the presidency, and therefore where they find themselves today, we find that the political and the campaign machinery is demobilized. And right now it's a whole different call. So the small hiccup that we might have seen could have been just that it coincided with the plans that NASA had to go to Machakos, but I don't think that it was a big issue that could have slowed down the NASA coalition around the big agenda of swearing in.
Okay. Just let our viewers know we were also expecting Honorable Dan Manzo, Member of Parliament, Makueni, but he has not arrived. We were hoping to also have him as part of this particular discussion. Eddie, David Ndii yesterday, press conference, a NASA strategist, stating clearly that there was no division in NASA. But we've heard about long meetings at night in secret locations. Again, and again, it might look repetitive to you, but does that not tell a story that there may have been some sort of division?
Again, as I said, I think what NASA is working on right now, if you analyze it critically, is a major milestone for the country. I don't think that
you're talking about the swearing in
of Raila Odinga as well as Kalonzo Musyoka. This is something that has never happened in the country, and therefore there are complexities that goes with that. That sometimes I would caution the government as well as the opponents of the same, that you should not take it lightly and read it from different perspectives. Because, for instance, NASA, when David Ndii talked, he kept on expressing that there's a committee that has already been formed to be able to put this in place. The nitty-gritties of that is not known to anyone, perhaps even to the larger NASA fraternity. So perhaps you could be reading a different script from what is actually happening. So it's subject to different interpretations, but it's my belief that if there was a problem, there is a serious question that we are seeing on the side of the principles, evident or rather indicative that this plan is on, and indicative that there is actually unity among the principles. Remember, I said the principles are the core factor than even the political machinery within the party that depicts the unity, the coalition.
I mean, there's a lot we'll have to wait and hear from once we have that rally in the afternoon. But you talk about unity, but we have seen a lot of seemingly mixed signals in terms of the directions that each constituent party wants to take. For example, Wiper seem very keen on dialogue. We've heard them saying time is running out for dialogue must happen. ODM, on the other hand, seem very focused on the January 30th swearing in of Raila Odinga as the people's president. We've had Honorable Moses Wetangula talking about Uhuru's cabinet must be all-inclusive. So in a sense, one then begins to wonder, one side is talking about swearing in, another side is talking about dialogue, another side is talking about a government which NASA says they don't acknowledge. Again, does that not raise questions? As much as you say there's unity?
I don't think so, actually. And you know, on the issue of dialogue, I actually think that we will cross the Rubicon. You know.
So when you hear NASA saying that there's still a day or two left, I mean wiper rather, a day or two, you know, time is running out for dialogue. I think this could be a misrepresentation of what somebody like Kalonzo is expressing. I think that Kalonzo is trying to acknowledge that we as a country went to an election on 8th of August. Remember, all these things are predicated upon the history of the 2017 election. We went to an election on August 18th. The election was disputed. The election, there was a petition in court that then invalidated the announcement of Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta as president. And then after that, things have not taken the right tone. Despite the fact that an election was held by the IBC, and President Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in with the Chief Justice President and all. It
was highly contested. I mean, like, if you look at, for instance, something like on the 25th of October, there are a section of Kenyans who went to court to seek, to the Supreme Court, to seek that the election be postponed or be nullified, and we know that the Supreme Court did not sit. How do you account that to Kenyans? The fact is that a justice that was thrown away? Is that a justice that was, so there's a lot of contentions that led us to where we are today. And therefore, when you talk about dialogue, I don't think there will be any form of dialogue that will water down the idea of electoral justice from where it is all predicated among these persons. And therefore, if you look at what NASA is doing now, I don't think that they are giving any chance for dialogue, because I think they crossed that Rubicon a long time ago.
Okay. Yes. I want to bring to your attention an interview that Honorable Raila did with the VOA,
yes,
where at some point he stated that if swearing in is not possible here, he could be sworn in exile, and part of the excerpt was in a section of the media yesterday. But NASA then came out yesterday denying that, saying that, you know, they were taken out of context. Were they taken out of context, or is that a viable option if January 30th doesn't happen here?
First of all, you have to actually appreciate that this is a people-led process. Because I think there is a tendency to look at the swearing in from a perspective of the traditional concept of swearing in, where somebody goes in, swears himself in, and then start looking at how do we get instrument of states and how do we ascend to power as a result of swearing in. NASA has been very consistent on issues around forming a people's assembly, so that this is an already ongoing dialogue. In fact, I'll call it the right dialogue that we need as a country, where the people are discussing these issues. Remember, the issue of swearing in is basically what the Constitution talks about, that we as citizens have got the absolute sovereignty on our hands, right? So that when we go to an election, what we do is that we give that sovereignty, or the sovereign power, to the people we elect. On 8th of August last year, Kenyans went to election, and there is a serious number of population that did not feel that they handed in that sovereignty to an individual or to the president. So when you look at the swearing in, as it is being propagated, you will find that it is more ritualistic, right? It is ritualistic in the sense that the people, as NASA claims that about 3/4 of the nation, are not satisfied or do not recognize President Uhuru's presidency. So if you look at it from that perspective, there is no way you can misquote it or you can misconceive it to be an issue that could be a swearing in exile, or a swearing in whereby
because it will be a people-led process as
exactly.
Finally, because our time is up, there has been some school of thought that the reason why President Uhuru Kenyatta has delayed naming his full cabinet is because there could be a few discussions with some members within NASA to have some of their members, picked as cabinet nominees. How does this all then tie in with what you're saying? Is on one hand you're saying a people-led process, on the other hand we're hearing reports that there have been night meetings with Jubilee members, there may have been possible discussions going back and forth. Where does that all fit into your narrative?
I would dismiss that as purely propaganda, because the process of dialogue, Maura, takes four angles. Number one is that there has to be well-established protagonists, right? And in the view of Kenya today, the protagonists of a dialogue would be, in my view, the chief principals of NASA and the chief principals, if there is any, or it's only one, of Jubilee. Number two, they would sit in a well-known platform, because they have got a constituency that follows them. Jubilee has got a constituency that follows them. NASA has got a constituency that they are responsible to, and therefore there cannot be some secret meetings that are going on. They have to establish what is the agenda of that kind of dialogue, or conversations as you have called them, in an open manner that is appreciated by their constituency. Then number three, they have to establish a mechanism of arbitration on who will regulate what they discuss and how they discuss it, and what then to what end will this person be able to engage. And then the last thing would be who takes care of the cost or any kind of facilitation that pertains to this, that there is no bias. So if you look at that process of dialogue,
we've heard that the Americans have a budget for a national convention.
But so that the process, just the process I've given you. There is no there's no articulation of that process that is known to the media and to the followers of Jubilee and NASA.
So for you, unless these four factors are made very clear, where
then you can say there is some conversations or some dialogue that's happening.
But for the others, secret meetings, etc., you don't take that.
I won't take it seriously.
Okay, can I bring in Honorable Dan Manzo now? He's here with us in studio, Member of Parliament for Makueni. Good morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. I trust that after this you headed to Machakos. Yes. Maybe you can let us know a little bit. The Machakos meeting, of course, some of the details coming to us very late. Let us know exactly what the agenda is in Machakos. We know it's, of course, tied to the People's Assembly, but it seems significant.
Yes, well, first of all, this morning we've been busy, preparing for this particular meeting. This is the Eastern region. All the assemblies in the Eastern region have approved the People's Assembly. The People's Assembly is within the law. There has been some hitches in court, whereby a court tries to give an injunction to a matter which is already live in an assembly. That is against the law, and in fact, if that happens to any of the assemblies, they should ignore such a court order, because it's already null and void. Such that when Parliament or Senate or county assemblies have a matter which is on debate, and they can vote for it or reject it. You saw what happened in Voi. Then such a matter has to be allowed to be concluded. And if somebody has a legal issue with the decision of such an assembly, then they can proceed now to court, and the court can now act appropriately. But any other actions, part of that, there has been frustrations for the People's Assemblies in different parts by interference of court, and most probably if you appeal on that particular matter, then you find the judge misled himself as to stop that particular assembly to do such a thing. So the People's Assembly is a way of saying the people have spoken. And in fact, what is happening in NASA is not really the will of the principals. They are already under a lot of pressure from the people themselves. And I felt a similar pressure as an elected person. When I go to Makueni, when I go to Wote, I go to Matiliku, I go to Kaduzweni, which are the main centers in my constituency. I listen to the people and I know what they want. So I have to balance between that and what may be perceived as a law, or what may have been perceived as an election. And I've come to one conclusion. The current government must know that the country is divided into two. In fact, they have said that the ship has left. But though the ship has left, it is leaking, and the captain has been advised that the ship is leaking. It is likely to sink. It in fact definitely will. But he has said, no, let's try it out. We have enough boats on board, and we have an helicopter, we can fly back ashore. The question is, how far will we have gone? Do you have enough fuel to go back to ashore? And that's why we say...
And you're using that metaphor to describe where you believe Kenya is at the moment.
Yes, that's where Kenya is, and therefore we need dialogue.
Where you believe Kenya is?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It's my own analysis, my own opinion, which I'm entitled to. The ship has left, that is true, because a lot of Kenyans will tell you so. But the truth of the matter is, before it left, one of the engineers has seen it is leaking. but the captain doesn't want to listen.
Okay.
So we want where the captain listens
yes.
and says, turn back the ship to the dock.
Let's talk a bit about let's talk a bit about the ship called NASA, because you're using that metaphor right now. Is Wiper now at peace with the composition in Parliament? Has that matter been put aside, because this meeting that's happening today should have happened earlier, but Wiper, for one reason or the other, seemed to indicate we have a few issues?
No. That was totally misunderstood, because I sit in
Kindly
those
clarify for us.
I sit in those meetings. Whatever is between in the House leadership is a small matter, and I personally moved a motion on the floor of the House. The Speaker ruled and said, Wiper was entitled to a slot as a parliamentary party, because it has 5% plus, and therefore that matter was referred back to NASA. Parliament has not yet opened. Once it opens, a letter will be written from a NASA secretariat forwarding a name, and that will be the end of that particular matter.
Okay,
so it's a very small matter. So the reason why the meeting was postponed was, first of all, to allow consultation between leaders, and we were now, because of the leaders of Machakos who were to host, the Honorable Wavinya and others, had not been consulted sufficiently, because of course she was very busy with the court case. At the moment now she was consulted, she said this is the best day in Machakos. This is what many people want.
So it's going ahead. I want to find out from you personally, have you signed the affidavit recognizing Raila and Kalonzo as the people's president?
I was among the first people who came up with this idea, with the Honorable Sotsi and the senator for that particular leadership.
So you're saying yes, you've signed that affidavit? Yes,
it's not really an affidavit. The original document was an affidavit.
Okay.
But an affidavit, as a lawyer, I'm aware the implications of an affidavit. So I was called by the team as a lawyer. I looked at it. We did a few consultations here with the other lawyers in NASA, such as Kaluma, and we arrived at a better document, which not necessarily, the press has run with the affidavit.
Give us the proper term.
Is an oath. It may have totally different implications, but we have such a document, which is a document of allegiance, so that to show that, because some of these people, we are with them during the day, in the evening they are in Jubilee, giving the wrong impression at the Jubilee. In the evening, I've been told by I bumped into one of the Jubilee ministers, and he was telling me, some of your people come to ask us for money in the evening. So we wanted to be clear that these are the people we are working with. This is a team which is clear in its mind, which is with the people, which knows where NASA is, so that whoever doesn't sign, then we know they are not with us. If they commit...
Do you have the numbers yet on who has signed, who hasn't signed?
By yesterday, they hit about 100, and I'm sure we'll soon get to 140.
Okay, let me get one or two questions from you before I give Eddie here a chance to give us his final thoughts. Wiper has been keen on dialogue. As of today, Friday the 19th, is that still?
Well, not only Wiper is keen on dialogue, ANC is keen on dialogue.
But you've been very vocal, even giving Jubilee, sort of ultimatums that
everybody is keen on dialogue, including Raila Odinga himself, the party leader of ODM. As far as I know, the Honorable Wetangula is for dialogue. The Honorable Kalonzo is for dialogue. Each one of them, ANC, Musalia, is for dialogue. No one has ruled dialogue out. Dialogue is the way to go. Remember, America had a similar situation like ours. The election was thoroughly contested by the people, though it never went to court.
You're talking about last year's election?
Yeah, the election. And there are efforts within the members of Congress and the Senate in America. There are a lot of efforts I'm aware of to bring the country together. I believe in Kenya, we should be having similar efforts through Parliament, through all the organs, through all the organs and through all the people. Everybody in Kenya wants peace. Everybody in Kenya wants dialogue. So there are one or two people misadvising Jubilee that don't go for this. We got the power. We want to. We can move with a leaky ship. Let them do that sort of don't care attitude is what we should eliminate from some leaders. Okay,
my final question to both of you, and I can start with you, Eddie. Should January 30th happen, as NASA has said will happen, what next?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to frame something slightly around
briefly,
very briefly. I don't think that what NASA is doing and the People's Assembly, the call for swearing in, should be interpreted as a call for dialogue. I think that what I want to frame and make it very clear is that the NASA principles are not against dialogue, should there need be to have dialogue. But as things stand right now, the question would be, is it the right dialogue? And the right dialogue would mean what would NASA want dialogue for? And in my view, NASA would want dialogue, and NASA is firm on the dialogue around the issues of electoral justice, because we come from a history of since independence up to now, the elections that have been free and fair has only been one, that is 2003. And the elections that have been without violence and without a lot of chaos afterwards have only been two. That is 2003 and 2013.
Although there are others who would disagree.
Yes, there are others who disagree.
But that's your take.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the dialogue that NASA would be keen on is predominantly a dialogue on electoral justice as the final frontier of democracy.
Fair enough.
Then you asked about the implications.
Post-January 13th.
Yes. I think that, in my view, there are people who are on the school of thought that after swearing in, there could be an idea of perhaps seeking on how to take power and stuff, because that's the common idea of swearing in.
Is that not illegal? Because the Constitution has the methods that power can be gained in this country.
The biggest interpretation should come from how it is people-led. And the people-led, my brother here talked about an idea of allegiance. When we talk about a people-led process, and it happens as a ritualistic ideal that the people of Kenya confers upon Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga and Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka the power to be their president, then it has got implication in terms of what then becomes a formal process for them as they see it. And I see a country having a parallel system.
Oh, okay. The Constitution has no room for that, but that's how you see it.
Well,
does it, you're the legal mind here.
Who reads the Constitution carefully, and that's why we've been telling Kenyans, look at this Constitution again. And that's one of the agenda for dialogue, because unless you have dialogue, unless you agree, you begin somewhere, you can never amend the Constitution. Some people argue that it is a mandate of the Parliament. You know, Parliament is a rubber stamp of the executive. There is no way the majority in Parliament will do what the executive doesn't want. And a good example is Keter and others. You can see they are under immense pressure. And eventually they will give in one way or another or negotiate. So Parliament itself cannot be the source. So the only way you can begin talks on amending the Constitution, probably to have an executive which accommodates regions. You see, elections in Kenya can never be a return match between Central and the Rift Valley. The day you leave out one of those big 40 blocks, then you have a bigger problem than one we have today. So the Constitution recognizes that the sovereign power belongs to people of Kenya. It donates that power to the judiciary, and it donates that power to the executive and any other leaders. And it can recall that power. The sovereign power of the people can be recalled. And therefore, if you have stolen sovereign power, then you are just living a lie. It will soon down to you that...
Again, there are those who say the structures of the Constitution are clear on how sovereign power is given and taken and so forth. IEBC is involved. There's a process. There are those who would argue that, you see things this way, but they see it differently.
And that's why the people must speak. The moment you have people reasoning like that, then you take it back to the people, either through a referendum or through by what we are preparing now. And that is a mechanism, structured mechanism, all the people voicing out their position. And I can assure you those ideas of those people, you know what has happened to judiciary. It is now under intimidation. There is no freedom of, by the judiciary as such right now. And we know the individuals intimidating the judiciary. And when you intimidate the judiciary, you can't say now the judiciary, which has a donated power by the people, has now decided this way, so this is the law. No way, it is the people who make the law. It is the people who decide what sort of constitution they want to have. So if they want to refine the current constitution, let them do it. Don't stop them. Don't say you are not responsible. I believe Uhuru Kenyatta is one of the key stakeholders in that debate. Is leading a lot of people also.
Briefly.
And the country is divided into two. It needs to be brought together. The only medium is the Constitution. We must have a constitution which is friendly to all Kenyans.
Okay, thank you so much. That's how we wrap up this discussion. Honorable Dan Manzo, Member of Parliament Makueni, for finding time to be here with us. Eddie Kisheru Okech, a political economy analyst, for finding time to be here with us. Give us the thoughts of NASA and, of course, those who they represent for Honorable Manzo, even as we will shortly be taking you to